Time to talk to one of our favourite guests on this show, Kirk Field. Bizarrely spent quite a lot of time in a field, dancing, writing, enjoying himself during rave culture, late 80s, through the 90s, acid house exploded, became a music journalist, worked for Mix Mag, even set up a travel company exclusively for clubbers. He is a Devon resident. We spoke to him before about his book, Rave New World, which did rather well. Well, he's got a new book, and it's called Rave New World 2, Clubbing, Holiday, Confessions, and he is with us from his boudoir once more again. Good morning, Kirk.
Good morning, John. Before we go any further, I mean, it's very early in the morning to think about Simon Le Bon's silver leather trousers. I mean, is such a thing as silver leather trousers? Maybe they might have been Baker foil.
There is now. If anyone can pull them off, I'd say you and him could pull them off, no one else.
It's too early to pull Simon Le Bon's trousers off, or anybody else's for that matter.
Are you well? How are you? How are things? You've been writing again.
I'm very busy, John. It's nice to see you again, catch up. I've got some news. New book is out. It came out last week. And the reason why I wrote that book was because I went on a clubbing holiday, a 20s holiday to Ibiza in the late 90s. And I was appalled at what I found, the way that they treat people, the way that it was all about pretty girls who were making a fuss over and anybody else they kind of ignored. And it was quite naff what they were doing. They were doing wet T-shirt competitions and bar crawls and all that kind of old-fashioned nonsense. And I realised that people wanted to go away on the holiday to listen to music, to catch certain DJs playing. You know, the sun's no hotter in Ibiza than it is in Mallorca or Tenerife, but people go to Ibiza because of the DJs. And so I'd set up this company for clubbers, and I did that for 25 years. And as you might imagine, there's quite a lot of stories because holiday behaviour. People let their hair down on holiday, John, and I'm there to witness it all. So I've written it all up and changed the names, but all the stories are true.
I went on a 20s holiday to Ibiza in 1997. The company were actually called 20s.
I was maybe on that holiday.
That's bizarre, isn't it?
And there was strange.
We went to a beach somewhere, and they did like a series of challenges. They dragged sort of 5 people up the front, did a series of challenges.
Yeah, the Beach Olympics there, I thought they were very dubious there, because they always seem to revolve around young ladies becoming less well-dressed.
Yeah, and one of them was they would put an egg down the front of a gentleman's swimming shorts.
Yes.
And then use a stick to break the egg. Well, in this one trip I went on, they missed the egg, let's just say that. And the guy ended up suing, and because he was in hospital for a week.
It's no joke, is it?
It's no joke, Kirk. That could actually have been in the book, maybe.
Have you stop the presses?
Have you got any stories which are okay to tell on the radio at 7:41 in the morning?
Yeah, there are one or two. Because I've got to say, it is obviously adults go on these trips, and so people do let their hair down on holiday. So there's a lot of stories in there which are quite racy, shall we say? But I've got a nice story for you, which is suitable for the breakfast listeners. And it includes, I mean, I've worked with lots of sort of famous people, sort of lots of pop stars over the years, working on music festivals and in clubland and all of that kind of thing. But one of the best stories is about someone I haven't worked with. At an alpine music festival called Snowbombing, it was my job to manage the Igloo Party, which is the igloo at the top of a mountain. And we had Fatboy Slim up there and Carl Cox. And it was sold out, and we'd programmed it the whole week. And people were always trying to play that gig. People would turn up with their record and say, I'm a really good DJ. Can I play your party? Can I do the warm-up? And I always used to say no, because we were no shortage of DJs. But then one particular day, a young lad with a guitar over his shoulder came up to me and said, look, I believe you look after the Igloo Party. Could I possibly play it? I said, no. I explained to him it was already programmed. We had example playing, Carl Cox, Fatboy Slim. And then he came away, 10 minutes later, he came back to me and he said, I believe there's a queue for the cable car because the cable car can only take 100 people up at one time. And if so, could I play the queue? It won't cost anything, and I'll just stand there with my guitar playing the cue. And I said to him, look, I really appreciate your offering, but I don't think it's going to work because everybody turns up in fancy dress. And so I had visions of him being hassled by Smurfs or interrupted by Oompa Loompas or something like that. And to which he replied, look, I'm used to being ignored. I go busking all the time and I'm used to being ignored. And I said, look, it's not about you being ignored. It's about you being hassled and interrupted. And really, I just don't think it's suitable. So I was quite firm. And I said, look, I'm sure you'll get a gig somewhere else, but, for me, I can't do it. I can't do anything at all. And that is how I turned down 3 free Ed Sheeran shows.
I knew something like that was coming as soon as you said busking. Yeah, well done, Kirk.
Yeah, but you know what? I'd do it again tomorrow because I did it with his feelings in my mind because I didn't want. It wasn't being mean. I was kind of being kind to him because it was quite leery when people turned up there and dressed in all these mad fancy dress things, fueled on schnapps, and I didn't want Ed, this young fresh-faced kid, to be to have a horrible experience.
That's a good one.
I am the man that turned down Ed Sheeran 3 times.
3 free Ed Sheeran gigs. Yeah. Oh, my word. You have
It didn't hold him back.
No, he's done all right.
He's been okay since.
He's done all right. I don't think he's been scarred by it. I think he's all right. In fact, I think I've heard him say that moment spurred him on to work even harder and to go strive on and achieve being turned down by Kirk. On a mountain.
What? He actually filmed the video, I think, 6 years later for Perfect, the Christmas #1. He actually filmed it in the same ski resort. So he came back and he had his moment there without me saying he couldn't do it. And it was at the top of the mountain and he went up there on a chairlift, which is on the video, so you can see that for yourselves. So he got there in the end.
One thing I've never asked you is when you go on these things, were you an observer, a dancer, a propper up of the bar, a sitter? What were you? A chill out area person? Were you a bit of all of it?
The first book was called Rave New World: Confessions of a Raving Reporter. So I was very much like a gonzo journalist, kind of embedded in it. And I think the reason why my book has resonated is because I wasn't a detached journalist, kind of chin stroking at the bar, thinking about the BPM or what kind of house mix was played. I was really, shirt off in the lasers, really enjoying myself and experiencing it from a punter's point of view, which I think gives it that kind of everyman touch.
And the new book, did you have enough stories to fill it?
Very much so, because the first book's 10 years, from 89 to 99. I set up the travel company in 99, so I've had 20 years. The book ends with COVID coming along, because when I set up the travel company, without having any experience in travel or tourism, it was just literally from an altruistic thing to give my generation of clubbers, dance music enthusiasts, the holiday that I thought that they deserved. So I kind of learned very much on the job. But the world had other ideas, John. As soon as I started, within the first time I sold my Ibiza holiday out, it was going to take place on the 15th of September, 2001. And of course, we all remember what happened on the 11th of September, 2001. And then there was the volcanic ash cloud. And then there was the taxi drivers strike in Ibiza. So then I went to the North Sea, and I did the first international clubbing cruises across the North Sea from Harwich and Newcastle to Hamburg and to Amsterdam. In November, that's when the ferry company gave me the cabins, in November. Now, there's many things you can do on the North Sea in November, but when the storm blows, dancing is not one of them. And so there's lots and lots of stories in there about the problems that we had. We had to weight the decks down and put eider downs and continental quilts under the decks because we were all playing in vinyl in those days. And so all of those stories, at one time, the ferry company cancelled the crossing. It was the new HSS ferry, super ferry, what's it called? What's the boat called with the two things underneath it?
Hydrofoil?
I was thinking about Simon Le Bon's trousers. I was thinking about Bakerfoil. Yeah, the hydrofoil. And that was cancelled because of a very severe storm. So we had to go all the way around on the Channel Tunnel instead, through Belgium, through France, through Holland. So instead of being on the coach for 80 minutes, my guests were on the coach for 10 hours. So you can imagine the state of the coaches by the time we got to Amsterdam. And so I was quite surprised when I woke up the next morning to find the coaches had driven back without us.
Oh, my word.
So I had
What'd you do?
people. Well, I had 400 people stuck in Amsterdam, and we had to find another service, another coach provider on a Saturday night. And our credit cards had all been maxed out, so we had to find someone to do it on credit. So you'll have to read the book to find out what happened. But it was when I was writing it up, I was breaking into cold sweats to even revisit that time. And unlike last time when I did Rave New World, and people saying, "Oh, surely this didn't happen." And there's only my editor really at Mixmag that said, "No, it did happen." I remember him sending the copy in. Well, this book, I've got 400 witnesses to verify that, in fact, it did happen. And we were stuck in Amsterdam.
And just why, because it's topical today, running alongside all of this was Britpop, and Oasis played their first gig in 5,795 days, I think it is today.
And 8 hours.
And 8 hours, that's it. What do you make of that?
Well, Liam came to snowbombing. I looked after Liam. A few years ago, he came out and we said, what do you want to do, guys? Do you want to go paragliding? Do you want to go skiing, snowboarding? All Liam wanted to do is ride around on a skidoo. Or one of those motorbike things on the snow. So we put him on a skidoo and I gave him a ride all the way around. And he came at this restaurant and I had a beer waiting for him. And he was absolutely freezing. I shook his hands and it's like shaking hands with a snowman because he hadn't brought gloves up on the mountain. And I said, "Why haven't you got gloves on, man?" I said, "Well, sun was shining. It was nice and warm in the valley." And so he didn't have any gloves on. And all there's a bank of photographers waiting to take pictures of him. And he said, "What are they doing over there?" I said, "They're waiting for you. Is it all right to take your photo?" "No, it's not. My hair's a mess. I haven't had a shave." so he wouldn't let us take his photograph because he hadn't had a shave and his hair was a mess. And so he pulled his hood up over his head and then he roared off on the skidoo. So we've got no photographs of that moment.
I'm double hard. Don't need gloves. Don't have gloves in Manchester.
That's it. I don't think he owns a pair of gloves.
Brilliant. Lovely to chat to you. The book is called Rave New World 2 Clubbing Holiday Confessions, and it's by friend of the show, Kirk Field. Lovely to chat to you again, Kirk.
Okay, John, thanks. I just want to say I'm going to be recording some sea shanties with a local group next week for my audiobook. I've got to mention them. There's the Midnight Gurnards from Newton Abbot, and we're going to be doing rave shanties. We've changed the word to the traditional sea shanties. And so I'm going to send you one when we get it recorded. I'm going to send you some next week.
We've got to do that. That's very radio friendly.
Indeed. One of the few things it is.
Exactly. Cheers, Kirk.
Thanks a lot, John.
Look after yourself, Kirk Field. Sea shanties with rave lyrics. I'm in.
Sounds curious.
I am in. Do like chatting to him. The stories
He's got so many stories, isn't he?
Yeah.